This is the Sigma 23mm f1.4 lens, and it's really important because it is specifically designed for APS-C cameras like the Sony a6000 series or the Sony ZV-E10 or Sony FX30. I think you can get it for L-mount also. I think this is really important because there just aren't that many great lenses for the Sony APS-C cameras. I mean, Sony has a pretty good lineup, but it's really nice to have some alternatives, especially for creators who want basically almost full frame background blur, full frame low light capability on a budget. The fact that you can get these third-party lenses for Sony E-mount is a huge advantage of the Sony lineup, right? Because you can't get this for Nikon Z-mount right now, even though Nikon desperately needs more APS-C lenses, and Canon is blocking all third-party lens manufacturers. I'm going to test this for sharpness in the studio here with 100 megapixel sample images. I'm going to bring it into our photo studio and shoot a mannequin backlit to test for contrast. And I'll put some lights in the background, and that will test for the bokeh, the quality of autofocus parts of the picture. I'll take it outside in full sun and shoot directly into the sun at the highest f-stop, f16, and see what the starburst effect looks like. And I'm also going to put it on a video camera to see what it looks like for talking head style things for people who might use it as a creator camera. Let's get right into the tests with sharpness. We take APS-C images and compare it against, well, the closest lens I could find, which is, oh, I'm filming with it right now, the Sony 24mm f1.4. Now, that's a full frame lens, and I don't have anything better because there's not really anything like this in a prime lens for APS-C, which makes it so unique. On the left, the Sigma APS-C lens, and on the right, the Sony full frame lens. Zoom in. In the center of the frame, they seem very similar. Closer to the edges of the frame, the Sigma is actually much better than the full frame lens. And on the left side, the Sigma is sharper than the full frame lens. This is great news. It's less expensive and sharper. This is my test scene for contrast and bokeh. I focus on the mannequin here, and she doesn't move between frames, which is really important. And in the background here, I have a strobe that fires and a series of lights in the background that are cast out of focus, allowing me to check the bokeh of the scene. In our contrast scene, we can see the two lenses have similar amounts of bloom, though maybe the Sony has a little bit less bloom. The contrast on the face seems very similar, but I have to call it a win for the Sigma because there's a little purple fringing here, but the Sony has a big purple spot of flaring. Examining the bokeh, we can see they're both very well shaped, but the Sony bokeh is a little bit bigger at the same aperture, so I'll count bokeh as a small win for the Sony. Looking at the fringing and the flyaways, they both have chromatic aberration removal on in Lightroom, but still the Sony shows more remaining chromatic aberration, so this is another win for the Sigma. I often use the highest f-stop on a lens to create a starburst and turn the sun into a focal point, so I like to look at how attractive that is. Here the GM has more points to the starburst because it has more aperture blades, and these points seem quite a bit sharper and clearer. There's some flaring on the Sony, but there seems to be worse flaring on the Sigma, so I'm going to call starburst a win for the Sony. When attached to an APS-C body, it's basically like a 35mm f2.1 lens, which that's my preferred kind of walking around lens. I use it a lot for video. This is more wide angle than that, but for a lot of video, I like it to be a little more telephoto, a little bit more formal, so I think this is going to be really big for both walking around street photographers and video creators who want to do sort of stand-up videos like this, but with nice bokeh. And let's go right into that test. Let's see how it performs autofocusing with a Sony camera. Here I am in my sort of cluttered photo studio with a 23mm f1.4, just testing the video autofocus capabilities. I've attached my Sony a7S III just because that's the only camera I have with a proper flip screen that can do the autofocus, so I'm only recording in HD. And so this should be enough to see if the autofocus tracking with the latest Sony cameras actually works well with this third-party lens. I'll say I cannot hear it moving at all. Sometimes with the third-party lenses, there'll be a loud grinding as it autofocuses, but it seems to be tracking just perfectly. And the fact that you can get this kind of nice background separation with an APS-C camera on a budget, I think it's pretty amazing. Thank you, Sigma. So what do you think? Are you a Sony APS-C shooter who wants more background blur, who wants better low light performance? and you didn't want to have to upgrade to full frame, Sigma has the answer to all of your problems pretty much. I'm really excited that they have some good, inexpensive APS-C cameras, small, lightweight, and still capable. Subscribe to see upcoming reviews of even more Sigma lenses, reviews of the Canon R8, and tutorials for just about everything. And don't forget, when you buy gear, use our links here. Adorama's not sponsoring this, they're just my favorite camera store. Sigma is certainly not sponsoring this, for the record. I've been glowing about it, but I'm just really excited, and it's completely unbiased. We pass on all the camera and lens manufacturer money because we do want to bring you those unbiased reviews. And the way you can thank us is by using our affiliate links and subscribing to the channel. And if you have any thoughts on this, write a comment down below. Bye.